welcome to Tech Talks, the People and Planet podcast. My name's Lee. I'm the founder and director of the Tech Network, a global tech for good specialist recruitment business based in Manchester. And today I am joined by Ida Tin, co-founder and chairwoman at Berlin-based women's tech firm Clue. So Ida, hi, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for joining. So we're super interested to have you on the show. You co-founded Clue back in 2012, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What's the company mission and what inspired you to really go on that?
So the mission is to enable people with cycles, mostly women, of course, to really understand what's going on in their bodies and have agency over their own health and using technology to get there.
Okay. I mean, I am a father of a 5-month-old baby. So these sorts of apps are not too much of a distant memory to me personally as well. Fortunately, we were, everything happened as it should do. But I guess this technology is becoming more and more prevalent in society now. How would you say that it's evolved over time since you started that?
Yeah, so let me just tell you why I started this company.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
I grew up traveling on motorcycles around the world with my parents. They're kind of crazy adventurers. So I'd seen a lot of the planet since I was 1 year old on our first trip, and I was 13 on the last trip. And I had seen women having lives where being in control of how many children you have is really, really crucial, starting point for what kind of life you're going to have. If you are able to put your kids to school, it's just like everything starts with that agency. So that sat really deeply in my body, kind of the awareness of this is a big thing for the planet. So that was one side. And the other side was that I tried to be on the pill myself in my early 20s. I had a lot of side effects. I didn't like it at all. But I was also in a steady relationship since I was 16. So I was thinking about not getting pregnant. And at some point I was like, why is this so difficult? Like, we can put people on the moon, and yet I don't know which days I can become pregnant. And I knew that it was only 6 days out of the cycle. I was like, if only I knew which 6, that would be so amazing. I could use condoms in 6 and not worry the rest of the time. So then I started looking into patent databases and see, maybe there was some technology, the smartphone, the iPhone, when the first iPhone just come out. And I thought, if I could just understand my hormones and have that data, then that would be amazing. And so it really started with like my own need and a global sense of I need this. And so, yeah, what has happened in that space? So that space kind of didn't exist, right? At that time, there was even a tech system in Copenhagen where I was at the time. That's why I moved to Berlin, where there was a little bit more of a nascent tech ecosystem.
Sure.
But there was a cultural difference in how we look at these things. So it was much more taboo than it is now to talk about menstruation. There's a much greater appreciation of what data can do for health. So many things have moved.
And so that kind of leads on to my next question, actually, because data is a super important part of Clue. How do you ensure that data privacy is top priority?
Well, you make it top priority. It's actually that simple. And when we started Clue, it was a non-brainer for me that really honoring that very intimate data that people were sharing with us was like the foundation of even doing this company. Because if nobody wants to share the data with us, we couldn't build and we couldn't provide the service we wanted to provide for people. And so very concretely in the beginning, we were just a small startup. We're like, we don't actually want to have this data on our backend. We didn't have a backend. We didn't build one till we felt very confident that we could do that with a lot of integrity. So the principle was like, don't ask for data that we cannot do something meaningful with for the user. So that was always the threshold.
And did you have to kind of almost market that to your audience in a way that you weren't going to do anything that was going to, abuse their privacy, for example.
Yeah.
Because it's never happened before, right? So how did you go about actually enticing people to give you that data?
It was a very big, and still is, educational task to make people understand what actually happens to a data point when you tap it into Clue. Like, where does it go? So I wrote blog posts explaining, the journey of a single data point. So that was one part. Another part, of course, was understanding the connection between data and advertisement and money, and help people understand how some of these things. We have made a choice about what we think is appropriate to do with your data, and we wrote it in ways. We wrote the terms of service and the privacy statement so that people could actually read it like it was meant to be read, which is usually not the case. So we did a lot of things to educate people, and then I think the times have been with us. Of course, GDPR came into being, at which point we were pretty much compliant already. And there's more awareness that, oh yeah, actually, I don't want Facebook to know when I'm on my period. Like, that does not.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had competitors who fed that level of data back into the ad networks. And people are like, that's not cool. And we're like, no, that's not cool. That's, and that's why I say it starts with a fundamental decision as a business owner, as a founder. What's your own ethics around it? And that's a really big conversation. How do we have founders who take full responsibility of all the power you have when you build technology?
Do you say that that's a kind of key differentiator between you and your competition then?
It definitely has been. And so sort of the next stage on that progression, you could say, is to be regulated. So we went through FDA clearance for one product one part of the product was being a contraceptive. So to actually be able to say in a marketing claim, hey, we can help you not get pregnant. And of course, that's a huge claim. It took us years to build a product that could live up to that, and something that has to be regulated. And that's another way where you build trust and you tell people, we are really caring about your safety, because that's essentially what regulation is. And my personal opinion is that, one, we need definitely regulation in tech, and in health tech, it's a fair requirement that more people get over that threshold of being cleared by FDA or TÜV or whatever the EU equivalent is. So that's also one way you communicate to your users, like, no, like, we really care about what's happening to your data and how we build this product so that you stay safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's probably becoming more prevalent now. And would you say that it's even going to be more so as time progresses?
I think so. And it's natural, because what we are able to do with the data and our algorithms and our products more generally are becoming more intense, right? We can diagnose, we can do things that are kind of prescriptive. So I think we will see that more people will want to be regulated, and consumers will expect them to be.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. So I think it was 2021 you stepped away from the CEO role and moved into a chairwoman's role. What was the reasons behind that?
It was, I had like a quiet voice at the back of my head, which was that I was kind of ready to do something else. And I was a bit tired, maybe also. I had been CEO for, 10, 12 years. I had 2 kids on the way, so that a lot had been going on. But what really was also was that I could see that the learning trajectory that I would be on to keep being the leader that Clue needed was taking me a place that I wasn't so interested in, quite honestly. Because all these years I felt I had a new job every day. Like, I was, I kept having to stretch and learn and expand to keep, growing with the organization, all of that. And this stage that the company was at, it wasn't a thing that it didn't call me so much to learn the skills I would have needed to learn. So
how does your role now differ from the CEO role? Is it more like an advisory role? Or?
Yeah, it's very different because first of all, it's not all consuming like it was before.
Yeah.
So it's more like on call. I would say sometimes the new CEOs, there are two co-CEOs, they would want to have a conversation about something specific that's going on, and I'm happy to have that with them. But I'm not deep into the matter, not at all. That was also a little part of the premise, because of course, as a founder, it's like you are so like entangled with this business, right? That they and the board was like, Ida, like don't be operational, like really step aside. And that felt good and right. So, and then I also understood that, oh, this role as a chairwoman could be full-time too. Like I could spend all my time running around and doing things related to Clue, and I decided to not do that. And I have loved how my world has kind of opened up as well. Before it was like family and Clue. That was pretty much like my whole my whole existence. And now I feel like I can be more interested in art and what else is happening in femtech. That's like a really beautiful movement to kind of.
Is that a for a portfolio then, perhaps?
For what, sorry?
A portfolio of non-exec work, or?
Yeah, I mean, so I also got divorced in these 2 years. We weren't actually married, but we've been together for 13 years, had 2 kids, so it felt like a divorce, I guess.
Yeah,
and
sure.
And that also took some time and like a reshuffling of my life. And so I pretty much said no to everything for 2 years. And then about 2-3 months ago, I was like, opening my inbox and be like, okay. And then it was just like, woof. Like, my calendar is kind of full of stuff, and it's fun. It's amazing, but I'm still sort of a little bit like, where am I going? And I also wrote a book these 2 years that I'm hoping to.
It's been a busy couple of years.
Yes, in some ways, and in some ways not. It's
a
different way. Yeah.
Well, maybe some more motorcycling coming up.
Yeah, that would be nice, especially now it's like spring. I do feel a bit of tingly.
So final question then. What comes next for going back to Clue? What goes next for these guys? Well, how does the femtech industry evolve? What do you see happening in the future?
Oh, in some ways, I feel we just got started. I feel we built this beautiful vehicle with a lot of users, a great set of investors, a brand. So now we can ship new things much, much faster. There's like, so we're taking people along on this reproductive life journey from their first period all the way to menopause. And now menopause is like the obvious, like glaring gap on that journey. We have period tracking, helping people get pregnant, be pregnant after they're pregnant, and trying not to get pregnant. So, but it is building a sustainable company. I mean, raising money is not forever, right? I feel we've done that soon enough, or soon we have done enough. And so really becoming profitable is a big goal, and we're almost there, so that's good. And then from a consumer kind of perspective, I would say there's still something about how do we make all our different data streams really come together in a more coherent way. So right now you would have some data in Clue, but you would also have some in your running app, and maybe you did like a hormone test in some company, and I would love all of this to come together in some more holistic way so that people can really leverage the data and start having this more full picture of their health. So that's one thing. I also think there is still many areas where we want to look deeper into the body on a more molecular level. So I see that happening in the industry, more sort of home testing of different sorts, people figuring out, okay, so we have blood coming out of us every month. Like, what can we actually learn from this, blood sample that we have all the time? That would be interesting. And then maybe finally, I'd say the discovery in femtech is still a little bit lacking. So a lot of people actually don't know what cool new innovations are being made out there. And a lot of the products are still very early. But so just making it more mainstream, I think, is a big task.
From a kind of cultural perspective as well, and also, speaking obviously from a male and from the father of a baby that's kind of gone through this from a male's point of view very recently as well. And I know that a lot of my male friends are using apps and various things as well at the moment. And I think certainly a couple of years ago, that perhaps wasn't even a thing, and certainly to be discussing it as well. So
yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. So we actually built a feature many years ago called Clue Connect, and the idea is that a woman can choose to share her data with a loved one or her coach or who it might be, her trainer. Because I think this whole inclusion of men and non-binary and all the rest, understanding this huge part of human existence that women experience is, I'm all for it. I'm a strong believer in building products for the world by diverse teams, also in female health.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It's been really insightful. I knew it would be. It's been really good to have you on. Thank you much. Ida, thank you.